Vivian, please don't make a scene. It's for the best. Daniel's text blinked at me. I stared at the screen. The email from Margaret had arrived just before midnight. I was officially uninvited from the annual family retreat at the Aspen Pines Lodge. My spot, she wrote with clinical politeness, was needed for someone named Clara, a wellness consultant, who was apparently essential to the family's health and harmony. My husband, holding the door open for them, had approved it. I wasn't just being excluded. I was being replaced. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home, even when you're the one who built it all? I didn't cry. I didn't reply. My fingers didn't tremble. I just sat in the dark of my study, phone glowing cold blue, clarity striking like lightning. I didn't open old photos. I opened my laptop to book a flight, first class, 6 hours to Aspen. My next message went to Laura, the general manager of the lodge, my only real ally there. Have the founder's suite ready. Full discretion. I'm on the first flight out of JFK. Aspen Pines wasn't a family heirloom. Daniel's family had old names, but empty pockets. I was a best-selling novelist. With the proceeds from my third book, Momentum, I bought the land, designed the main lodge with an architect obsessed with reclaimed wood and custom ironwork. I built it as my fortress, my legacy. My name alone was on the original incorporation papers. Then I met Daniel. Charming, brilliant, enamored by what I'd built. Out of love, I made the mistake of adding his name to the deed when we married. Just another way I proved my loyalty, the good wife trap, the one where you shrink to make others feel safe. Daniel always praised me for it. You're so reasonable, Vivian. Not like my sister. Calm. Good. Only later did I see it wasn't praise, it was a cage. While Margaret wrote PR pieces calling the lodge our family's Aspen home, Caroline critiqued my menus, and Daniel stayed silent. I became the silent fixture, expected to disappear politely. Daniel's next text arrived as I confirmed my flight. Just let them have this weekend, Viv. We'll talk when they're back. No. I'd talk when I was there. At the airport lounge, my phone buzzed with an email from Caroline. She had forwarded an entire chain by accident. The subject line, FWFFW Aspen Pines Rebrand Deck Final V3. I opened the attachment. A 30-page PDF, sleek and corporate. The Preston Legacy, Recontextualizing Aspen Pines. My stomach didn't drop, it froze. Page after page of timelines, media strategies, new logos featuring the Preston family crest, a founder's wall highlighting Daniel's great-grandfather, a man who never set foot in Colorado. My name appeared only once, buried on page 27 under Neutralizing Competing Narratives. I closed the laptop, heart steady. The fortress was mine. The weekend would be theirs. But I was already planning my return. If you love real emotional stories, hit subscribe, we post one every day. I was a competing narrative. The plan was to recast me as a generous early collaborator, a temporary helper brought in to support the family vision. They were rewriting my life story without asking. I closed the PDF and realized this wasn't a petty squabble. This wasn't just cruelty. It was a calculated professional campaign of erasure. Psychologists have a term for this, ambient gaslighting. Not one bold lie, but 1,000 small cuts. Forgetting to invite you, shrinking your role in stories, erasing your contributions bit by bit until you're a ghost in your own life. Margaret wasn't just mean. She was strategic. That email. A blueprint. I sipped water. No anger. Focus. They had mistaken my patience for weakness, my silence for consent. The boarding call for Aspen Pines echoed through the terminal. I stood, slid my phone into my pocket, and walked to the gate. What had started as a personal slight had escalated into a professional war. Fine. I would meet it professionally. Once buckled in, I made 2 calls. First, to my personal attorney. Henry, I need the original incorporation files, the premarital ones, and a current title search on the lodge. Plus all LLC filings from the last 6 months. His voice calm, measured, done. He didn't ask why. Smart man. Second, Laura, my general manager. Laura, remember the original bronze founder's plaque? The one Margaret claimed was tacky and stored 3 years ago. I heard her smile through the phone. Yes. I want it polished, displayed above the grand fireplace. Immediately. With pleasure, she said. I stared out the window as the plane climbed. That's when I understood Margaret. She's what I call an inheritor's imposter syndrome. She's never created anything real. Her life is built on managing other people's work, spinning stories, shaping optics. I'm a creator. I make substance. She couldn't stand that. She wanted to rewrite my tangible legacy, steal my narrative, rebrand my creation as her own. The plane leveled at 30,000 feet. She thought this was a branding battle. I knew it was a fight over ownership, with lawyers and strategy. Sunset in Aspen painted the mountains in gold and violet as I deplaned. The first message waiting for me was from Henry. Just a few lines. My stomach dropped. Pitkin County filing discovered, Margaret Preston has petitioned for primary management of Aspen Pines LLC, citing spousal incapacity and abandonment. I read it twice. Incapacity. This wasn't about marketing. Not a snub. This was an attempted legal coup. The flashy PR deck, the wellness consultant, the boardroom distraction, they were all smoke screens. While Margaret distracted me with her narrative, she'd gone to the courthouse, weaponizing Daniel's silence. She aimed to declare me legally unfit to manage my own property. I felt cold clarity. This had crossed from family drama into criminal territory. I walked past the luxury SUV I had booked. Not to Aspen Pines, not yet. I rented a simple Jeep from the counter and drove to a climate-controlled storage facility on the edge of town. Unit 22B. My personal archive. The place I kept what was mine and mine alone, old manuscripts, first editions of my novels, and one other treasure. I rolled up the heavy metal door. The air was dry, still. Against the back wall lay a cardboard tube. Inside were the original blueprints. Not digital copies, not builder specs, but the ones the architect and I had labored over, arguing, perfecting. I laid them on the concrete floor. 6 feet of heavy vellum, faintly scented with ink and time. Every line, every elevation, every notation for the custom ironwork I designed. And in the bottom right corner, in the title block, one thing Margaret had overlooked, my signature. Vivian Harlow, principal designer and investor. Margaret's 30-page PDF full of lies couldn't compete with 6 feet of architectural truth. I rolled the blueprints up, secured them with a rubber band, and stepped out into the crisp mountain air. It was time to go home. I passed through the grand oak doors of Aspen Pines. The tube held firm in my hands. The lobby was exactly as I designed it, the scent of pine and cedar curling from the fireplace, the custom chandelier glinting overhead. Standing in the middle were the entire family. Margaret held a champagne flute, flushed with triumph. Daniel, my husband, hovered behind her, uncomfortable but present. Caroline smiled politely, and the newcomer, Claire, the wellness consultant, looked around like she'd won a prize. They had started without me. Margaret saw me first. Her glass wobbled. The smile didn't fade, it cracked. Pale, then red with rage. She set the flute down, stiffened, ready to command the scene. She opened her mouth. At that moment, Laura emerged from the manager's office, striding past Margaret like she was furniture. Her voice rang across the lobby, crisp and commanding, "Welcome home, Miss Harlow." Every head turned. The laughter stopped. Glasses froze midair. Laura beamed. "The staff is thrilled. The founder is here. Your suite is prepared." Margaret's mouth hung open. Laura's eyes flicked briefly to the massive stone fireplace. There it was, the original bronze plaque, polished to a high shine, anchored in the stone. My name, my full name, Vivian Harlow. The lobby was silent, the snow outside audible in the quiet. Margaret's eyes darted from the plaque to me. Rage, disbelief, and fury warred across her face. She glanced at Daniel. He didn't meet her gaze. He stared at the plaque as if seeing it for the first time. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Laura had checkmated her in public. She hadn't welcomed a guest. She welcomed the founder. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. I walked past my frozen family, nodded to Laura, and said, "It's good to be home." The so-called legacy dinner was held in the private dining room. The table was suffocatingly formal. Margaret, recovered from her shock, was back in performance mode. Black dress, strained smile, standing at the head where I belonged. "I want to thank you all," she began, voice smooth and rehearsed, "for joining our first annual Preston Legacy Dinner. It's vital to honor our history and continuity. Legacy isn't just buildings, it's about what we pass down." Her gaze landed on me. Another attempt to recast me as a guest. Daniel stared at his plate. I let her finish. Polite, hollow words, fading. Then I rose. "No, excuse me." I took the heavy cardboard tube and walked to the head of the table, placing it squarely in front of Margaret. "What is this, Vivian?" she snapped, mask slipping. I didn't answer. I removed the cap and unrolled the blueprints. Massive, detailed, hand-drawn. They spanned the head of the table, crushing the centerpiece, knocking over a glass of red wine. Dark liquid bled across the vellum like a wound. Silence held. I pointed to the title block. "This," I said, voice low but resonant, "is substance. Ink, math, work. My signature. Before I was a Preston." I pulled my phone from my pocket. "And this," showing Daniel, Caroline, and the rest, "is story," displaying Margaret's 30-page rebrand PDF. "And this," swiping to the lawyer's email, "is criminal behavior," holding up the petition to declare me incapacitated. I looked at Daniel, at Margaret. "You confused narrative with substance. You confused criminal acts with PR." Silence followed. A whole fabricated world collapsed. Caroline stared at the blueprints. Daniel's shame was palpable. Margaret had no words. Her weapon was useless. By 5 a.m., black SUVs slid down the mountain. At 9 o'clock, Henry Brooks called. The petition was withdrawn. Later, Daniel found me in the great room, staring at the fireplace. 10 feet away, he stammered, She's gone. I told her I'd remove my name, sign anything. I'm so sorry." I didn't turn. "Yes," I said. "You will." I looked out at the snow-covered peaks, the valley I had built. I wasn't just the owner. I was the guardian. I had built a fortress. And finally, I had learned to defend it.